The battle raged across the vastness of space, a storm of fire and metal. Alien warships, sleek and imposing, loomed against the starry expanse as they unleashed torrents of plasma, tearing through the fragile hulls of human ships with frightening precision. The Zarksoth fleet, once thought unstoppable, had the upper hand. But amidst the chaos, a single human vessel, the Nebula Reaver, emerged from the shadows, its hull scorched but defiant. Inside, Captain Elena Voss clutched the controls. Her knuckles white as explosions lit up the bridge. "We can't outrun them," Commander Elijah Tanaka shouted over the alarms. "We'll need something unexpected." Elena's mind raced, the weight of the galaxy pressing on her shoulders. Then, without warning, the Nebula Reaver lurched forward into the heart of the Zarksoth's formation, unpredictable, reckless, and precisely the kind of move the galaxy had underestimated humanity for. And in that moment, everything changed. The galaxy was at war. The great galactic empires had once coexisted, their borders carefully delineated, their alliances fragile but maintained by a delicate balance of power. But with the arrival of the Zarksoth, a race of highly advanced and ruthless conquerors, that fragile peace shattered. The Zarksoth had one singular goal: domination. With their overwhelming technological superiority and merciless tactics, they swept through system after system, their name striking fear into the hearts of every civilization in their path. The Galactic Council, a conglomerate of the galaxy's most powerful species, had watched as the Zarksoth annihilated entire planets, their warships capable of obliterating cities with a single blast. The Council had debated for years whether humanity, newcomers to the galactic stage, was a threat to be neutralized or an ally to be cultivated. And for years, humanity's position was clear: insignificant. Their technology was crude, their military scattered, their politics a mess of chaos and disorder. But that was before the Zarksoth arrived. Now humanity was at the center of the Council's attention, but not in a way they had hoped. To the Zarksoth, humanity was a curiosity, a species that had not yet mastered the art of space travel, but was quickly accelerating into the stars. The Council, on the other hand, saw humanity as a potential nuisance, not even worth acknowledging in the face of the Zarksoth's wrath. Yet, despite their primitive appearance, the humans were resilient, cunning, and determined. Where other species folded under the pressure of the Zarksoth's might, humanity fought back, often outgunned, always outnumbered, but never giving up. In the United Earth Federation, a coalition of human colonies spread across various systems. The sense of unity had never been more urgent. Commanders like Elena Voss, the captain of the Nebula Reaver, were reluctant heroes, thrust into war without a moment's preparation. With each passing day, the human resistance grew, not because they were a match for the Zarksoth on paper, but because they knew how to exploit the one thing the Zarksoth had never accounted for: human ingenuity. Elena Voss, once a quiet strategist, who had worked in the shadows of the Federation's war councils, was now one of the brightest hopes for humanity's survival. Her ship, the Nebula Reaver, was a testament to human determination. Built not with the vast resources of the galactic giants, but with scavenged technology, experimental drives, and the raw, unrefined power that humanity could muster when pushed to the brink. Beside her, Commander Elijah Tanaka was an anomaly in his own right, a diplomat turned soldier, one of the few humans who had ever interacted with the Zarksoth firsthand and lived to tell the tale. His diplomatic skills, however, had proven invaluable in understanding the mindset of the Zarksoth, and perhaps, just perhaps, in predicting their next move. The Zarksoth's attack on humanity had been swift and brutal, their weapons outmatching anything humanity had ever encountered. But in the aftermath, as the Zarksoth's war machines roared across the stars, humanity found a way to adapt. Their reliance on technological innovation, rather than brute force, allowed them to survive. The Nebula Reaver was one of the Federation's greatest achievements, a hybrid ship constructed from salvaged alien tech, Earth engineering ingenuity, and experimental weapons. Its design was unorthodox, a patchwork of different technologies, but each component had a purpose. Its cloaking device, based on Zarksoth stealth tech, stolen from the ruins of a destroyed enemy ship, allowed it to slip past the enemy's radar, undetected. Its weapons, modified to fire a combination of human plasma and alien particle beams, were designed not to overpower, but to outsmart. As humanity struggled to form alliances with other galactic species to hold off the Zarksoth, they were forced to negotiate and adapt at every turn. Some species, fearing the Zarksoth's wrath, were willing to help, but others saw humanity as nothing more than pawns in the grand game of galactic politics. Humanity's greatest strength was that they didn't rely on politics, only on survival. However, despite their ingenuity, humanity's position in the galaxy was precarious. The Zarksoth had no intention of letting them survive. And the Galactic Council, despite their fascination with humanity's ability to adapt and resist, remained dubious about whether the humans could ever truly be more than a nuisance. In the halls of the Galactic Council, discussions about humanity's role were divided. Some viewed the humans as an annoyance, a fleeting spark in the vast galaxy that would burn out quickly. The Zarksoth's invasion was seen as a quick way to wipe out this insignificant species, and the Council believed that humanity would fall to the Zarksoth's superior forces, allowing the Council to resume its political maneuvering without distraction. But they were wrong. Humanity was scrappy, resourceful, and unpredictable. When faced with impossible odds, they found ways to surprise. Their fleet was smaller than the Zarksoth's by a massive margin, their technology in many ways outdated, compared to the advanced species that surrounded them. Yet humanity found ways to fight back, underdog tactics that the Zarksoth couldn't comprehend. It was in these moments that Elena Voss and her crew on the Nebula Reaver came into focus. Human ingenuity, born of desperation, was the key to turning the tide. In the face of an enemy that didn't see them as a serious threat, the Nebula Reaver's crew began to forge strategies that the Zarksoth never anticipated. Hit-and-run tactics, decoys, and espionage, things the Council never believed a primitive species could conceive of. But as the battles raged, humanity's role in the war became undeniable. The time had come. Humanity was no longer a footnote in the galaxy's history. They were an unforeseen force capable of changing the fate of the galaxy itself. And in the upcoming battles, they would show the Zarksoth and the Galactic Council what humanity was truly capable of. As the war with the Zarksoth continued to unfold, the very fabric of the galaxy began to shift. The Zarksoth, confident in their overwhelming technological superiority, had underestimated humanity from the start. Their initial battles had been swift and brutal, their warships tearing through human fleets like a hot knife through butter. But as humanity's resilience and ingenuity emerged, the Zarksoth found themselves facing a force they had never anticipated. Humans didn't play by the rules. Humanity's underdog tactics, fueled by desperation and the will to survive, began to challenge the very essence of the Zarksoth's approach to warfare. The first real sign that humanity was not as helpless as the Zarksoth believed came at the Battle of Hephaestus Station. Situated on the edge of the Zarksoth's territorial reach, Hephaestus was a mining station and a key military supply depot. The Zarksoth had believed it would be a simple operation to wipe out the humans' resistance, but they failed to account for the ingenuity of the human fleet. Elena Voss, aboard the Nebula Reaver, had been given a seemingly impossible mission. Infiltrate Hephaestus Station, disable the Zarksoth's defenses, and steal critical intelligence about their next move. The Zarksoth's technological superiority had kept most of the galaxy's resistance in check, but humanity's adaptability was their greatest weapon. Elena's plan was a bold one. She had decided to take a page from the Zarksoth's playbook and use their technology against them. By hacking into the station's external sensors and creating a fake signal from a nearby Zarksoth ship, she misled the station's defenses into lowering their guard. The Nebula Reaver slipped through undetected, cloaked in Zarksoth stealth technology, a product of scavenging wrecked ships. As Elena's crew planted the explosive devices and accessed the station's core data, the Zarksoth's command fleet arrived, believing they had caught the human fleet off guard. But as they moved in, expecting an easy victory. They found themselves suddenly ambushed by a coalition of human ships that had been hiding in the station's asteroid field. The battle was chaotic, an unrelenting storm of gunfire and maneuvering. But the Zarksoth's superior fleet was not prepared for humanity's tactics. They had expected direct confrontation, overwhelming firepower. But what they faced instead were cunning hit-and-run tactics, using the station's terrain to their advantage. The human ships, small and nimble compared to the massive Zarksoth, warships darted in and out of cover, striking with precision before disappearing back into the shadows. The Zarksoth's command fleet struggled to maintain cohesion, unable to predict the humans' next moves. When the dust settled, the Zarksoth were forced to retreat, leaving Hephaestus Station in human hands. It was a victory born of audacity and sheer grit, an undeniable statement to the galaxy that humanity was not to be underestimated. Elena Voss, having once been thought of as a tactician too cautious for true war, became a symbol of hope across the human resistance. Her name was whispered in the halls of the Galactic Council as a threat and in human settlements as a hero. But the Zarksoth didn't take this defeat lightly. They would learn from their mistakes, and the next encounter would not be so easy. The Zarksoth were not known for their capacity to learn from mistakes, but their pride and arrogance had begun to waver. The loss at Hephaestus Station was a blow to their strategic calculations. They could not fathom how a species so primitive could possibly outmaneuver them. In the high-tech war rooms of Zarksoth Command, officers and generals alike reviewed the human tactics with growing frustration. "Unpredictable," one officer remarked, slamming a fist onto the table. "They adapt, they improvise. They are not following any pattern we can anticipate." Their response was swift. The Zarksoth began to upgrade their warships, integrating more adaptive technology that could track human ships more effectively and deploy more advanced countermeasures. The next phase of the war would not be about overwhelming force. It would be about adaptation. And yet, in their arrogance, the Zarksoth underestimated the key ingredient of humanity's response. Not only were humans adaptable, but they were resourceful in ways no alien species had ever expected. On Earth, Elena Voss and Commander Elijah Tanaka sat in War Council meetings, attempting to understand the Zarksoth's next move. They had won a battle, but the war was far from over. The Zarksoth's technological advancements meant that humanity could no longer rely on the same tricks. They needed something new, something bold. It was during one of these strategy sessions that Elijah Tanaka, ever the diplomat, came up with a daring idea. What if humanity could gain the trust of a species that the Zarksoth had never expected? A species that had been exploited and abandoned by the Zarksoth but had the power to turn the tide of the war. The Ithacrians, a reptilian species long dominated by the Zarksoth, had a deep-seated resentment towards their former oppressors. Humanity had attempted to make contact with them before, but the Ithacrians had been too distrustful to cooperate. Elijah proposed that they make contact again, this time not as conquerors but as equals, offering them a chance at revenge against their oppressors. It was a risky move, but humanity's greatest strength was its willingness to take risks others would avoid. The human resistance reached out to the Ithacrians through back-channel communications, offering them a secret alliance. In return, the Ithacrians would provide key intelligence on the Zarksoth and their military infrastructure. At first, the Ithacrians were hesitant, unsure of the humans' true motives. But in time, after witnessing humanity's resilience and shared desire for freedom, they agreed. With the Ithacrians' support, humanity gained access to a new kind of warfare, biological warfare. The Ithacrians had developed a virus, a weapon that could disable the Zarksoth's neural interfaces, rendering their soldiers and ships useless. The virus was not lethal to humans or any of their allies, but it would cripple the Zarksoth forces, leaving them vulnerable. Armed with this new weapon, humanity launched a series of precision strikes against Zarksoth supply lines and forward bases, using the virus to disable entire fleets in the blink of an eye. The Zarksoth were caught off guard. Entire divisions of their troops were paralyzed, their ships left adrift in space. For the first time, the Zarksoth were the ones forced to react. As the Zarksoth's mighty war machines faltered, humanity's Tactical brilliance shone through once again. But this time, it wasn't just about cunning strategies. It was about unity. Humans, Ithacrians, and even a few other alien species who had joined the cause fought together, combining their strengths and outsmarting the enemy at every turn. Each victory, no matter how small, became a symbol of hope, a flicker of light in the darkness of war. And yet, despite the successes, the Zarksoth were not broken. They were wounded, yes, but their capacity for cruelty and destruction was undiminished. Humanity's victory was still uncertain, and the war would only grow more intense as the stakes escalated. The galaxy watched as humanity, once dismissed as insignificant, now became the spearhead of resistance. But the Zarksoth had learned from their earlier missteps, and their retaliation would be swift and merciless. As the war pushed on, Elena Voss and Elijah Tanaka knew that they had only begun to uncover the true scope of what was at stake, and what humanity was capable of. The Nebula Reaver streaked through the endless void of space, the engines roaring with a ferocity that mirrored the determination of its crew. Elena Voss stood on the bridge, her eyes locked onto the tactical display. The culmination of years of bloodshed, sacrifice, and relentless resilience had led to this moment, the final confrontation with the Zarksoth. Their forces were amassing at Erebus Nexus, a supermassive black hole that served as the heart of the Zarksoth's military command. This was no ordinary base, it was a fortress built to endure sieges for centuries, with defenses that seemed insurmountable. But Elena knew that if humanity failed here, it would mean the end of everything they had fought for. The human fleet, bolstered by Ithacrian warships and other newfound allies, had spent months preparing for this assault. It wasn't just a battle of strength, it was a battle of strategy and nerve. The key to victory lay in a desperate gambit, using the Erebus Nexus itself as a weapon. Elijah Tanaka had devised the strategy, his brilliance shining through in humanity's darkest hour. The black hole's immense gravitational pull was both a threat and an opportunity. If the fleet could lure the Zarksoth's warships into its gravitational field, they might destabilize their formation. To accomplish this, they needed to disable the Zarksoth's central command ship, a behemoth known as the Oblivion Warden, which housed their fleet's tactical AI. The Oblivion Warden is the linchpin, Elijah had explained in their final strategy meeting. Take it out and the Zarksoth lose their cohesion, but we'll only get one shot. The plan hinged on a daring maneuver. Elena's crew would infiltrate the Oblivion Warden, plant an EMP device to disable the AI, and escape before the human fleet launched its full-scale assault. The risks were astronomical, but so were the stakes. As the human fleet engaged the Zarksoth forces, drawing their attention, the Nebula Reaver cloaked itself in Ithacrian stealth technology and slipped past the front lines. Every moment felt like an eternity as they approached the Oblivion Warden. Its sheer size dwarfed the Nebula Reaver, a stark reminder of the Zarksoth's overwhelming power. Elena led the infiltration team herself, donning a suit equipped with the latest in human-engineered adaptive armor. Beside her were her most trusted crew members: Marcus, the grizzled engineer with a knack for improvisation; Lila, the sharp-eyed eye sniper who had saved Elena's life more times than she could count; and Kethar, an Ithacrian warrior whose loyalty had become unshakable. The interior of the Oblivion Warden was a labyrinth of sleek corridors and pulsating energy conduits. The team moved with precision, evading patrols and neutralizing guards with silent efficiency. The Zarksoth had grown paranoid after their recent defeats, and the ship's security was tighter than ever. But humanity's resourcefulness once again proved its worth. Using a hacked access terminal, Marcus bypassed a series of security barriers, leading them to the ship's core. The core of the Oblivion Warden was a breathtaking sight, a vast chamber dominated by a swirling sphere of energy, encased in layers of shielding. This was the tactical AI that coordinated the Zarksoth fleet, an artificial mind of unimaginable complexity. The EMP device had to be placed directly at the heart of the core to ensure maximum effectiveness. As the team approached, alarms suddenly blared throughout the ship. The Zarksoth had detected their presence. Elena cursed under her breath, signaling the team to move faster. Lila and Cathar held off the advancing guards, their weapons blazing in a desperate attempt to buy time. "Marcus, how much longer?" Lena shouted, her voice barely audible over the cacophony of battle. "Almost there," Arcus yelled back, his fingers flying over the device's controls. Sweat dripped down his face as he calibrated the EMP for maximum output. The Zarksoth forces pressed closer, their soldiers moving with cold precision. Lila took a hit to her shoulder but kept firing, her eyes blazing with defiance. Cathar roared as he charged into the fray, his reptilian strength unmatched by the Zarksoth's mechanical warriors. "Done," Arcus shouted, slamming the device into place. Elena grabbed him and Lila, dragging them toward the exit as Cathar covered their retreat. The EMP detonated seconds later, a blinding pulse of energy that cascaded through the ship. The tactical AI flickered and went dark, plunging the Zarksoth fleet into chaos. But the cost was steep. Cathar, refusing to abandon the fight, stayed behind to hold off the Zarksoth soldiers. As the blast doors sealed shut, Elena caught one last glimpse of her friend, his eyes blazing with pride and resolve. With the Oblivion Warden neutralized, the human fleet launched its full-scale assault. The Zarksoth warships, no longer coordinated by the AI, faltered as the combined forces of humanity and their allies pressed the attack. Elena, back aboard, the Nebula Reaver, directed the battle with unrelenting focus. "Target their engines," he commanded, her voice steady despite the chaos. "Force them into the gravitational pupil." Knee by one, the Zarksoth ships were disabled or destroyed, their hulking forms dragged inexorably toward the black hole. The Erebus Nexus became a maelstrom of destruction, the Zarksoth fleet consumed by the very force they had sought to control. But victory came at a price. The human fleet suffered heavy losses, their ships battered and broken. As the Zarksoth flagship was swallowed by the black hole, a cheer erupted across the surviving ships, but it was a bittersweet moment. Friends and allies had been lost, their sacrifices etched into the fabric of this hard-won victory. As the dust settled, Elena stood on the bridge of the Nebula Reaver, gazing out at the wreckage. The war was over, but the galaxy would bear its scars for generations to come. Humanity had not just survived, it had triumphed against an enemy that had seemed unbeatable. Elijah Tanaka's voice crackled over the comms. "Elena, you did it. We all did it." "No," Elena replied softly, her eyes misty. "They did. Every person who fought, who sacrificed, who believed. We did this two together." And the silence that followed, a new sense of purpose began to take root. This was not just the end of a war, it was the beginning of a new era. Humanity had earned its place among the stars, not as conquerors, but as survivors, as fighters, as dreamers. And as Elena turned away from the viewport, she knew their greatest journey was still to come. The Nebula Reaver floated silently in the aftermath of the battle, its once pristine hull scorched and battered. The crew moved through the corridors with an air of quiet triumph, their faces etched with exhaustion and relief. The Zarksoth fleet was no more, their tyranny broken at the Erebus Nexus. Yet as the wreckage of war drifted into the black hole's eternal maw, the victory felt both monumental and fragile. Elena Voss stood in on the observation deck, her hands clasped behind her back. Beyond the reinforced glass, the void stretched endlessly, speckled with the faint glimmers of distant stars. It was a view she had seen countless times. But tonight, it felt different. Tonight it felt earned. The names of the fallen scrolled across the ship's internal displays. Friends, comrades, and allies from across the galaxy had paid the ultimate price. Among them was Cathar, whose fierce loyalty had ensured the mission's success. Elena closed her eyes, remembering his last moments. His sacrifice, like so many others, would never be forgotten. A soft knock at the door broke her reverie. Elijah Tanaka entered carrying a small datapad. His face was weary, but his eyes still held a glimmer of hope. "They're calling it the miracle at Erebus," he said, his voice low. Every surviving ship is reporting in. We've won, Elena. Lena nodded slowly. But at what cost? Half our fleet is gone. Entire colonies are in ruins. We've bought survival, Elijah, but rebuilding will take generations. True, Elijah said, stepping beside her. But survival is the foundation of hope, and hope is something the Zarksoth could never take from Usus. Is the human fleet regrouped? The surviving Ithacrian delegation requested an audience. Their ships, though smaller in number, had fought valiantly, proving their commitment to the alliance. Elena welcomed their leader, Sorin, into the conference chamber. Sorin's translucent skin glimmered in the artificial light, their shifting hues reflecting the complex emotions of their species. They bowed deeply, a gesture of respect that Elena returned. Elena Voss, Sorin began, their voice resonating like a melodic hum. You and your people have shown resilience beyond what we believed possible. The galaxy owes humanity a debt. Thank you, Sorin, Elena replied, her tone measured. But this was a shared victory. Without the Ithacrians and our other allies, we wouldn't have survived. Orin's color shifted to a somber blue. It is true that we fought together, but it was your species' indomitable will that turned the tide. We have learned much from humanity, your determination, your resourcefulness. It has made us reflect on our own history, our own struggles. Lena leaned forward, curiosity piqued. What do you mean? Orin's form shimmered with shades of amber and violet, the Ithacrian equivalent of deep thought. Long ago, before the Zarksoth began their conquest, we were a fractured people. Divided by ideology, we nearly destroyed ourselves. The scars of that era remain, and it was fear of returning to such chaos that made us hesitant to ally with others. But you have shown us that unity is possible, even in the face of impossible odds. Lena absorbed Sorin's words, a sense of quiet pride blooming within her. Humanity's journey had been far from perfect, but perhaps their struggles had forged something uniquely valuable, a capacity to endure, to adapt, to unite. In the days that followed, the remnants of the fleet convened to plan the future. Representatives from each allied species gathered aboard the Nebula Reaver, their discussions marked by cautious optimism. The war had left the galaxy fractured, but also ripe for renewal. Elijah proposed the formation of an interstellar council to foster cooperation and prevent future conflicts. We've seen what happens when power goes unchecked, he argued passionately. The galaxy needs a system that ensures balance, that values every voice. His idea was met with enthusiasm, though the path to realizing it would be fraught with challenges. Trust, after all, was a fragile thing, especially in the shadow of war. Elena remained a central figure in these talks, her leadership during the conflict earning her respect from allies and adversaries alike. Yet, as the plans took shape, she found herself yearning for something simpler, a moment of peace, a chance to grieve and to heal. One evening, as the fleet prepared to depart the Erebus Nexus, a transmission was received from deep within the system. It was faint, almost lost amid the residual energy of the black hole. Marcus worked tirelessly to decode it, his brow furrowed in concentration. When the message finally played, the bridge fell silent. The voice was unmistakably Zarksoth, but it carried an unfamiliar tone, one of desperation and perhaps even remorse. We were wrong, the voice said, crackling with static. We sought control, believing it would bring order, but in doing so, we lost ourselves. If you are hearing this, know that we were not always like this. We too were once seekers of knowledge, of connection. Learn from our failure. Do not let power blind you as it did Usus. His transmission ended abruptly, leaving a heavy silence. In its wake, Elena stared at the console, her mind racing. Were the Zarksoth capable of regret? Or was this a calculated ploy, a final attempt to sow discord? Elijah broke the silence. Do you think it's genuine? I don't know, Elena admitted, but if there's even a fragment of truth in it, we owe it to ourselves to reflect. We defeated them, but we can't allow their mistakes to become ours. As the fleet departed the Erebus Nexus, the black hole's gravitational pull faded into the distance. The scars of war would remain for generations, but so too would the lessons. Humanity had faced extinction and emerged stronger, not through domination, but through resilience and unity. Elena stood on the bridge, her crew bustling around her. For the first time in years, the horizon felt open, the future unwritten. She turned to Elijah, a small smile playing at her lips. "We've come a long way," she said softly. "But this isn't the end." "No," Elijah agreed, his gaze fixed on the stars. "It's the beginning of something new." And as the Nebula Reaver accelerated into the endless expanse, humanity's journey continued, not as conquerors, but as explorers, builders, and dreamers, determined to forge a brighter future among the stars.